The IPFW men's basketball team recently completed perhaps the toughest 2-week schedule any team could play, short of playing in the NCAA tournament. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we'll visit with head coach Doug Noll and review those ball games. In the second half of the program, we'll talk women's basketball as well with assistant coach Chris Paul and special guest Hillary Kulik. Our show is Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next. Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, the men's basketball team here at IPFW just recently completed perhaps the toughest 2-week schedule that any team could face, regardless of conference, regardless of division and affiliation, short of playing in the NCAA tournament. And our first guest this week is the head men's coach here at IPFW, Doug Noll. And Doug, we're back in studio and not in the training room at the Breslin Center, but have you had a chance to catch your breath after this last 2 weeks of play?
Yeah, a little bit, Mike. These last couple days, the kids have finals. We don't schedule practice for a couple days. We'll go back at it on Wednesday through Sunday before we play again on Monday. But yeah, it was kind of a real fast and quick 22 days of being on the road and playing a lot of good teams. And you made a good comment there, and probably the only other tougher schedule was Ball State playing Kansas, UCLA, and Duke in 3 days.
Yeah.
But you know, we stretched ourselves pretty far, and it was great. You know, if you start out at the top, then things only get easier. So you know, that's what we're looking at right now, and hopefully we can take some of these things that we're learning early in December and some in November, and take those to January, February, and end up, you know, really having a pretty good season.
Now that it's been, this part of the schedule has been completed, and looking back, if you had to do it over again, would you schedule the way you did? I mean, looking at what you did, and I'll briefly capsulize it, we opened up at the Coliseum against Morehead State. Nice turnout. Unfortunately, we just came out in the short end. We go to Toledo, play a Mid-American Conference school. A chance to win, didn't quite get there. Then you go to Dayton, play Wright State from the Horizon League. Chance to win, didn't quite get there. Get on an airplane, go to Florida. A ball game that perhaps should have been won, could have been won, and questionable last few seconds of play, officials call, as far as the tape that I saw. You lose by 2. And then we get ready, and you got the stretch. Michigan State, and we talked about it last week, Maine playing that 7-footer that had 22 points on us. We didn't have any size to combat that. And then we're going to talk about, in a few moments, the 3 games this past week at Michigan, at Ball State, and then home on Sunday against Indiana Tech. Now looking back, would you do it again?
Well, no doubt. But you have to remember one thing. We didn't put the Ball State game in there.
Yeah, that's true.
We had Ball State scheduled in January sometime on a Monday, I believe, and had a little bit of leeway both ways because second half of the year, I think we only play 4 Saturday games out of 8. You know, in the 2 months, and part of that is because conference teams play on Saturdays. It's very hard to schedule a conference team who has an off Saturday. Now, there's some of them based on odd numbers in conferences like the Mid-Con and even the Horizon, where we'll play UIC here at home on a Saturday, and we've got a couple others. But we did not stick the Ball State game in there, and I wasn't very happy. But, you know, it's a situation that we needed the game. It was a guaranteed game, you know, and unfortunately, you know, we were in, you know, pre-finals week with the last week of finals where papers are due, Mike, and I was just not comfortable with that game. Originally, we had Michigan scheduled on Tuesday, which we played. But then we had Indiana Tech on Saturday, the 8th, and Jason Klein from Tech was good enough to give us a bump and push it to Sunday to give us one more day of rest. And we actually took the Friday game off, we took the Friday off from practice just to recuperate a little bit. So in the big picture of scheduling, we didn't schedule that Ball State game there, and I think everything would have been fine had we not had that in there.
Well, let's go back to Ann Arbor. Last Tuesday, another Big Ten school, former national champion in '89. I know you've been there before. I remarked to some people, in fact, the Michigan broadcaster from WJR Radio, Frank Beckman, first time I set foot in that arena was when I was a senior in high school, and my teammate who played guard, who was a prep All-American, was being recruited by Johnny Orr, amongst other people. And it's a great facility, seats over 13,000. They had 10,000 plus in the stands. The ball game got off to a decent start. It was kind of weird. Nick Wise scored the first 9 points for us. Jeremy King the next 6. And we had the lead early on them. And we'll take it from there.
Well, Mike, in a lot of our games, this year so far, we've come out and played, pretty good basketball for stretches, but in some cases, small stretches have really hurt us. And part of that is the depth that we have on the inside. We've had to revert back to almost a total perimeter team, which I don't like, but it's, it's what you face when you lose a couple big kids with early season injuries. And so, we played Michigan State, very typical to Ball State. It was even for the first 17, 18 minutes. We actually had the lead at one point. Nick got hot, then he cooled down, then Jeremy got hot, then he cooled down, then Brad got hot, and then he cooled down. But we always had somebody, kind of throwing in, 3, 6, 7, 8 points in a stretch, and you touched on Nick with 9. Nick only had 11 for the game, so he only scored 2 more points the entire game. Jeremy had a nice ball game with 16, and then Brad finished with 14, 10 in the first half. But, we got that stretch of about 18 minutes where I think we were down 2 or 3. I think it was 35-32. And then we proceeded to turn the ball over 5 times in the next 6 possessions. And basically just totally careless mistakes on our part, unforced errors, bad passes, fumbling the ball, not mentally sharp. And, when you're playing these types of teams, you have to be almost perfect just to survive. And so we go into the game, or into the half, I should say, 10 down, when 2.5 minutes ago we're only 3 down, 1 possession. And that was exactly the same thing with Ball State. And then in the second half, almost a carbon copy again, about the 9-10 minute mark, we're only about 3 possessions, and then Michigan really put on a run. And I know that the last 5 minutes of the game was 20-6, so they outscored us 14. But I think with 5 to go, I think we were within about 14 points. And just did not play well, didn't get really a lot out of our post kids. When your guards are leading, the team in rebounding, you've gotten some problems, and we do from that standpoint. But, it'll be fixed over, the second half of the year and next year. We've got, 2 more big kids back, and Jim Kesnick and Zach Reuter. You have to understand these guys aren't, saviors. They're not going to come in and get 20 and 10, but what they do is they give you some more depth inside. They give you a few more big bodies. They offer some more fouls, and some better rotations for us as well. And then we can move some different people into some different spots. I mean, Rick Wyan at 6'6", 6'7", can't guard Lonnie Jones at 7 foot from Ball State, but that's what he did. And then Chris Young, the Big Ten's probably not real happy with us because we gave Chris Young a lot of confidence. He turns around and then has a career best against Duke on Saturday. So we gave him a lot of confidence to take into the Big Ten season. But all in all, if you take out about 5 to 7 minutes in the Michigan game, we probably played them pretty even.
Yeah, so the score of 91-62 is definitely misleading. And that was the final score of the Michigan game. You go home. You're actually on campus on Wednesday, which was a shock, it seems, because it seems like you guys have been on the road forever. Thursday, you go down to Muncie. And again, as you started to allude to, great game early on, early lead. We had the lead late in the first half. And then they went on that run, as you told me on Sunday. Played great 33 minutes, which that's 7 minutes, but the last 3 minutes or 4 minutes of the first half and the first 3 minutes of the second half, they got on an avalanche and Katie barred the door.
Yeah, again, when we make mistakes, we make them in bunches, and that's where we really need a team leader, and we need some guys to step up and take some control of this team and know if we're turning the ball over, we need to get a good shot, a great look, maybe get it inside, try to draw a foul, get some momentum stopped, and that's the problems we've had, excuse me, so far. Ball State, I'm oblivious to about anything during the holiday seasons, other than basketball, and my wife Carla gets a little upset at me, but in fact, I didn't communicate well at all. They thought the game was at 7:30 at Ball State, so they show up about 20 after and get in there, and we're up by 2 with about 4 minutes to go in the first half. So, that was, we got off to, I think it was a 10-2 deficit at Ball State, but we came back and hung tough and actually had a 2-point lead with maybe 4 minutes to go. And with 2.5 to go, we're only down 2. But then again, history repeats itself. We made some mistakes, gave them some runs, gave them a couple good looks at the 3. They go in 10 at half. And then the second half, much the same. We're about 7 to 9 points down with about 13 minutes to go. And from the 13-minute mark to the 9-minute mark, we get outscored 20-3. And again, part of this is these teams are better. There's no doubt about it. And as I just mentioned a little earlier, playing these types of teams, we're gonna struggle some. But I think if you get out and play some of these good teams now, then it only gets easier. You learn a lot. You see how far you can stretch yourself as a player. Doesn't do you any good to go out in the driveway and beat up on your little brother all the time playing basketball. You're never going to get any better, Mike. If you go out and you play some of the best teams, even if you get beat, you're going to learn some things. I thought we really learned a lot at Michigan State. I mean, playing a team like that at the Breslin, that was scary. I mean, what was it, Sunday, they just beat a team by almost 60 points, or a Division I team by 60, 65 points, 90-something to 30-something. And believe me, I woke up many a nights thinking, I hope that doesn't happen to us at Michigan State, and we really did well as far as, representing IPFW in a way that people were pleased. I have, friends of the program, boosters calling, saying, hey, forget the record. We knew it was going to be tough, but you guys are doing really well. Ball State, like you mentioned, we outscored them by 2 for 33 minutes of the game. That's almost, 80% of the time, we play to an advantage. And then the 7 minutes, we just cave in. And we got to eliminate those 7 minutes. And that's what we're trying to do. And that will help us by shoring up our interior, getting a couple new kids in. Actually, hopefully having 3 new kids by December 20th when we play Colorado State. That's going to give us a little more depth. So, I'm not discouraged. I'm frustrated a little bit because I really believe we probably could have won 3 games by now. Florida International and maybe Maine. I think in the Maine game we were so beat up from Michigan State that we just didn't have any gas in the tank. But what I told the guys early, I kind of have to throw out the window because I said just give yourselves a chance the last 5 minutes of the game. Be in the game, be close. Well, on the road you can't be close. We found that out. Because every team has their own league officials, and they're not going to let some rookie team come in and beat you. We've got to be up by 5 or 10, and if we get some bad calls down the stretch, we got to weather the storm. But we played Ball State pretty tough for the majority of the game, but we didn't finish the game, and that's why we got beat. Plus, they're a real good basketball team.
Well, final score was 113-89. We're going to show some highlights now. We finally got to come home and play in the Hilliard Gate Sports Center, and this was Sunday afternoon against Indiana Tech. And we're actually in white jerseys, just to refresh your memory, and talk a little bit. Nick Wise, a trademark 3.
Yeah, Nick. Actually, we didn't know if Nick was going to play in this game. He'd hurt his knee at Ball State, and you can see he just came in and knocked down a few threes early in the game. He actually had 20 points at halftime, but We put him through the rigors Sunday morning. He rode the bike, he got stem. We tried to do everything, and he said he was about 85%. So, we were really pleased that he came out and played well. Here, Keon Henderson playing a little bit of D, or actually not too much really at this point. But Keon's problem is he's very athletic, but he has a tendency to stand up defensively and not sit down. And, the quicker kids can go around him. But, he's progressing as well and doing a good job. He's still a little inconsistent for what we want, but he plays hard and is doing some good things for us. And I thought, the crowd was pretty good on Sunday against Tech. And I thought, even though we didn't play our best, we reversed roles, really. And here we took it out, and Brad got a quick pass down to Nick. Here's a little sideline break that we have. But, we were pleased that, we can play bad and not play, to our capabilities and still beat a team, because Tech's really pretty good. John Watkins hitting a three from the left corner, and we scored 11 threes. D comes back. Gets a steal and a dunk.
6-footer with a jam.
I tell you what, and I told the press, I said, we don't have D'Angelo Woodall today. We don't win. Even with Jeremy King scoring 30 and Nick 29, D was our energizer bunny that day. 13 points, led us in rebounding with 6, led us in assists with 6, led us in steals with 6, had no turnovers, which was huge in a game that was up and down. Here, really poor transition defense by us. I was really displeased with our interior defense and our transition against Tech. They just took it to the hoop or took it at us. Jeremy King making a nice move to throw one down on Tech.
This is the start of the second half, and we're going to play about roughly 2 minutes of game footage on this. And something that you've talked about many times on the show, the first 3 to 5 minutes of each half is extremely important. And here's a chance. We had the lead at the half. They started to make a run, and here's how we're going to respond.
Well, Mike, what we do is we try to cut it into little battles, so that we can win the war. We cut it into 8 battles, 4 in each half of 5 minutes each. And what we want to do is just try to win. At Ball State, we won 5 of those. We lost 1 by 1, but then the other 2 battles we lost big, and that's why we lost. At Tech, I think we really only won 6 of the battles. We did win the war, but we have to continue every 5 minutes to play and make the games into smaller segments so that we play at a better clip and a better pace. Here we just kind of stand and we're spectators, we're not participants, and this is the thing I've tried to harp on the most. Here we give up middle penetration and we have no help side, and we were really lax defensively. To give up 100 points is frustrating, although we had so many possessions, but our defensive efficiency rating was up in the 80s, and that's way too high. I thought for 8 games we've come out and really had to dial it up, and I think subconsciously our guys didn't dial it up at this game like we're capable of doing, but I think D'Angelo did, and that helped us because that's why he got 6 steals. He was really playing really tough, aggressive basketball, a lot of great ball pressure, and it helped him and paid off. Here we just get sloppy and lazy, and really we're lucky that Tech missed a little layup.
3-pointer from Brad.
Well, D comes down under control, and he sees what we need right there. He gets into the paint a little bit. They collapse on him. Our wings are running wide. He kicks it out to Brad, and Brad hits a nice little jumper, a vertical jumper where you just go straight up and down and nobody's around you. So those are things that we can use and we can work with, but D'Angelo definitely took us to another level, and it's good to see because he lost his position here a few weeks ago by being late on the bus. And then end up, Brad played pretty well at Michigan, and so he's fighting for his position back, but he definitely dialed it up the last 2 games at Ball State and at Indiana Tech.
Final score, IPFW 111, Indiana Tech 100, and we have a victory, so we're 1-8. We're going to take a break right now, And when we come back, we'll take a look and see what's happening up ahead and just review a little bit what's gone on in these last 9 games, a little bit more. So stay tuned. Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
Dr. Matthew Kubik is an architectural engineering professor at IPFW who utilizes his experience to teach his students one-on-one.
So it's really shoulder-to-shoulder learning that we're looking at problems together for the first time.
Dr. Kubik also is the director of the honors program at IPFW. His ability to teach on a personal level allows him to educate to the needs of his honors students.
They want more conversation. They want a closer contact with professors. They want interactive learning in the classroom.
He is thankful for the advantages of a combined classroom of young students and students who are returning to college after years in the workplace.
That mix of students creates a classroom environment that is exciting, that's vibrant.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Our topic this week is basketball. Our guest right now is head men's coach here at IPFW, Doug Knoll. And Doug, we talked about this last week, 3 games, 1 and 2. It's nice to get a victory. As you say, it's been frustrating on you and Joe and Fred, your assistants, and I'm sure on the team. But now this 2-week stretch, or this 3-week stretch really, as you talked about at the beginning of the program, is over. And this week, as you also said, it's final exam week. In a way, it's a brief respite for you and Joe and Fred, because as you said, there's not going to be practice for a couple of days. And the next ball game that's up ahead is not until next Monday night. Again, a home game here against Coach Dick Hack and the Tri-State Thunder. How important is it to have this little respite at this part of the season?
Well, I think it's really good, and in fact, the kids don't get much of a rest because they've got to, go through and work hard at getting through their finals, and obviously that's why they're here in school, is to graduate and move on and go out and be a real good contributor in society, and so for them it's a different type, and in fact right now we still have our guys coming in a little bit in the day just to get a study break, just to get away from it, maybe get some shots in, get a little cardio on the treadmill, nothing big, but concentrate on some of the things that they need to do right now, and so yeah, it's good for us to sit back, kind of look at where we've been, kind of do some things. Obviously we're not taking any breaks right now, but we're looking at trying to look ahead now and try to be prepared. So 5 games in whatever 12, 14 days, on the West Coast swing and the Rocky Mountain swing, we want to be prepared and try to get as many scouting reports done ahead of time, and then just add to a little bit. So still a lot of work, for us. Good time to get out on the road. Also, we're going to be out on the road probably 4 or 5 days this week, looking at players for the upcoming seasons, juniors, seniors, that type of thing, and those are all things that we're working at right now. And also catch up. When you're on the road a lot, you got to continue to write letters to recruits, and those are all things, Mike, that we've got to do and to catch up with from being far behind. So not a lot of rest.
On the humorous side, my warped sense of humor. Did Carla recognize you this past weekend because you were actually home?
Well, believe it or not, I wasn't, because Saturday and Sunday we were preparing for our game. So, and then Saturday night I was out watching a recruit play. So I wasn't home that much this weekend. So, but
you better be nice to her.
Yeah, that's the situation with with basketball, but I'm fortunate I get to watch my daughter a couple times this week, and I'll be out on the road a couple times. So, the NCAA has a rule where only 2 of the coaches can be out at one time, and that really works out great for us, because I don't know what I'd do if they said all 3 of you could, because then I would feel that I'm not doing my job. But I want to see my daughter play as much as I can at Carroll, and when she plays, Joe and Fred just go out on the road, and then when she doesn't, I make sure I'm out on the road. So the guys really work well with me, to watch her play some, which is very important.
We don't have too much time left in this segment, but I would like to ask you to comment a little bit. One of the nice things that we saw Sunday afternoon for brief periods of time was the return and first appearance on the floor this year for the 2 big men, 6'10" sophomore Jim Kesenick and 6'8" freshman Zach Reuter. Talk how much not only does it mean to have those 2 guys back on the floor, even in a limited capacity, but if you can, this is the season of joy. Talk about the work that trainer Dan Fox has done to help these 2 guys rehabilitate from the foot fractures that they had.
Well, I know I can start with Dan, and I probably couldn't get done in the next few minutes that we have, because we've taken a different approach with Dan, although he's, he travels with the men's basketball team. He's just done so much for us right now, not just in the training room, but he's kind of our business manager on the road, and he did this with the Wizards and some of the other professional baseball teams. He handles the money, and I don't have to deal with that. He calls for the pizza and sets up our dinner reservations, and we can really concentrate on basketball, and this has just been a tremendous help to us, and we're really thrilled with that capacity. But to get these guys back ready to play, we didn't know if we're going to have to redshirt them or what, but we really felt like if we could still get the majority of the games out of them, then it would be in our best interest to do that, and that's what we're doing. Ball State, both of them dressed, but we didn't play either one of them. And at Indiana Tech, I think Jim got the most minutes at maybe 12. Excuse me, Zach only had about 2 minutes, but got a tip in. We just felt like the game was a little closer in the second half than what we would have liked, and we'd like to got Zach in for a few more rotations. But Jim did a pretty good job. Got a couple rebounds. Went 4 for 4 from the line. I told him he's leading the nation in free throw shooting right now, which is good at 100%. But just the presence that they're bringing back, and they're working out this morning right now, as well as David Simon, one of our red shirts that can't play this year. That will be a sophomore next year at 6'9". So, we're very positive about getting a few more big kids back, and especially, Jim and Zach for Monday night against Tri-State, and then to go on the trip with us. And Dan's just done a tremendous job of the rehab and the cardio and trying to get these guys ready. And then, of course, Joe and Fred have done a tremendous job working with these guys. Like this morning, getting them some extra work during finals week, so that they can be prepared for starting next Monday night. And we want to try to get them a few more rotations in there. And hopefully, I would look for Jim to play 15 to 18, and maybe Zach, 10 to 12 or 14, somewhere in that area. And I think that's going to be a good start for him. But they give us a presence. Again, like I said, they're not going to go out and get 20 and 10 probably. And they're not going to come in and dominate games, but it does just give us a lot more flexibility for rotations and to have bodies in there and a few more fouls to give to the teams that have big guys.
Well, as you said, next up, next Monday night, Tri-State. I believe it's a 7:30 tip-off here at the Gate Sports Center. We wish you luck in that ball game, and we'll talk about that when we visit again next week.
Appreciate it, Mike, and I want to wish everybody happy holidays out there from our team. And it's we have a lot to be thankful for, and obviously we knew it was going to be a difficult season as far as who we're playing, but we're really excited for the future of IPFW basketball and for IPFW athletics. So happy holidays to all your family too.
Thank you. Same to yours. Doug Knoll has been our guest, the head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. We'll take a break, and then we'll look at women's basketball with assistant coach Chris Paul. That's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
You're looking at soldiers and their families, citizen soldiers, members of the Army National Guard. They train part-time, building civilian experience, pursuing higher education. They serve our country and community in times of need. Join them. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD. Discover the part-time job with full-time pride.
In the Army National Guard, you can.
Matthew Shepard died after he was beaten and tied to a fence. 2 men have been charged. One pleaded guilty.
You know, my biggest regret after walking into the hospital and seeing him was I didn't tell him enough as a father that I loved him. The thing that I've learned most is that your son is your son and your daughter is your daughter, regardless of whether they're straight or gay.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We turn our attention now for the second half of the program away from the men's basketball team and towards the women's basketball team. And we're pleased to welcome on board both on Mastodon Spotlight and to the university assistant women's basketball coach Chris Paul. Chris, first of all, welcome to Mastodon Spotlight.
Thank you.
And welcome to the university.
Thank you.
Briefly tell us a little bit about yourself.
I participated at the University of St. Francis and graduated in '94. Took a year off, and then after that year, Coach Patterson approached me, who was coaching the women's team over there at St. Francis at the time, and said, would you be interested in joining our staff? At that time, when I went to college, I was an education major, and I wanted to coach, and that's the way I grew up. My dad was a high school coach, and I'd been around the game, you know, pretty much my whole life. But when I graduated, I didn't know whether I wanted to do that or not. But when he contacted me, and I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. You know, and 7 years later, here I am, and it's probably the best decision I've ever made.
There's an added wrinkle to this story, though, isn't there?
Yes, Bruce is my father-in-law. I was my wife Tricia, his daughter. We met each other at St. Francis. We were going to school at the same time. She was a point guard for the women's team, and I was a point guard for the men's team. So, you know, there is a little bit of additional flavor to that, a little bit, I guess. But it makes for a unique relationship. Bruce and I are pretty close. You know, we spend. You know, I kid Tricia about it. I'm with him a lot more than I'm with her. I'm with Bruce all the time, but we do get along really well, and I think that's one of the things that's made us pretty successful.
Well, you came over here after a successful run across town at St. Francis, and now you're finding out, as we all are, what Division I basketball is all about. We're going to take a moment. We're going to highlight the 2 games that were played last week. They were both here at the Irrigate Sports Center. The first game was Thursday night, and I know that there was actual, I don't want to use the word fear, but I think it comes close to it. Bruce had mentioned to us last week. North Texas came into town, a very good basketball team, had taken 2 top 20 teams and played them deep into the ball game. Oklahoma was one school, and Texas Tech, I believe.
Texas Tech, and they had actually played Baylor earlier in the season, and they were in the top 25 as well. So those were their 3 losses, and we knew that. We knew that coming in. We knew we were going to have our hands full.
Well, they come in here, and I know the fear was the fact that they were very athletic, and there's no doubt about it. When the game tipped off Thursday night, they showed right off the tip that they were athletic, and they jumped out to the early lead, and it seemed like for the first 4 or 5 minutes that our women were they were intimidated, plain and simple. They weren't making passes, they weren't cutting, they weren't moving without the basketball. They were afraid to shoot. I know that there were 2 shot clock violations in the first 4 or 5 minutes. Obviously, you and Bruce and the rest of the staff were frustrated.
Yeah, that's right. They were a little intimidated to start. I think maybe we had talked about it a little too much, about how good they were and that we were going to have to come focused and ready to play in this, and we were going to have to do that. You know, and I think we were down 16-4. We called timeout and just said, hey, you know, this is a long ball game, you know, and we just need to sit down and relax and do the things we can do and let everything else fall in place. And as soon as we hit a couple shots, you know, what we were talking about before we game on, we've got a couple players that as soon as they hit a couple, they realize that, you know, we can do this, and they start getting some confidence. And from that point on, we battled. I mean, you know, we battled all the way to the end. You know, as soon as it was just that first couple minutes that we just had to get through.
Well, you were down by 10 at the break. You kept cutting into the lead. Actually had the lead for the first time with 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go and a couple of free throws.
Right.
Had a chance to build on it. Amy Gerald's hit a 3 that could have been big, but she couldn't hit it.
Right.
And they came back and they won a tight one by 2 points, 68-66.
Right. You know, we never want to talk about moral victories, but it was one, and it was one that we let slip away. With about 3 minutes ago, we were up 1, and we had the ball twice. And you're right, Amy Gerald's had one that we probably should get a 1.5 for, because it was halfway down from the 3, and that would have put us up 4, and that would have been pretty big. But then they went down. They didn't score, I don't think. And we got the ball back, and I think we turned the ball over underneath. And then they went down and did what they had to do. But a credit to our girls is we put a game plan together. We knew what we needed to do to stay in a ball game. They executed, and they put themselves in a position to win a ball game. We just didn't pull it out at the end, that's all.
Final score 68-66. Then last Saturday, in a game we broadcast here in College 56, you took on Eastern Illinois. We're going to look at the first few minutes of that ball game. Eastern comes in 0-8.
Yes.
What were the thoughts before the start of the game?
Well, another thing we talked about off camera is just because a ball club's 0-8 doesn't mean they don't have any talent. It doesn't mean that they're not good. They've played some good competition. They are a young ball club as well. So, and they had lost some games that were close. So they very easily could have been 4-4 instead of 0-8. We knew that they were dominant on the inside. We knew if we were going to compete in this ball game, we were going to have to take the inside away. And as you'll see early on here, we didn't really do a very good job of doing that. The O'Connor kid just dominated us early. You know, got 18 in the first half on us, and that pretty much set the tone.
Good shot there, Brooke Gossett. They had good bookends. Brooke Gossett was number 5. Pam O'Connor was number 25. Pam O'Connor, 6'2", sophomore.
Yes.
And Gossett, I believe, is 5'11" or 6 feet.
Yes.
And they dominated the paint early. On both ends of the floor.
Yeah, on both ends of the floor, and that's one of the things that we're running into right now is, you know, we've got shooters and we've got some athleticism and we've got kids that play hard, but besides Kathy Hay, we don't have a lot of size. You know, Tiara Dudley and Laura Douglas give everything they can down low, but T's 5'10", and Laura's, you know, about 5'10" as well, and it seems like every team we play has got 6'2", 6'2", 6'1", 6 foot, and not only are they 6'2", but they're also big bodies. And that's one thing that we're battling with and struggling with right now is how to compete inside.
See, we got the ball on a rebound. Camera moves more to the right.
Yeah, early on, this also was a lot like North Texas, and it's been a lot like a lot of our games. Is we've been starting slow. You know, we did the same thing at Bowling Green. You know, we did the same thing at actually Ball State. We started pretty well. But for the most part, we've started slow, and this was just another example that we just took a while to get things moving. And unfortunately, we didn't get it moving early, and we battled that the rest of the game and never really got things clicking.
Any guess as to why the slow starts are a commonplace occurrence?
No, we really don't. We've changed things up. We have talked about different defenses to start the ball games in. We've talked about different lineups to start the ball game in. The only thing we can think is maybe it's just a lack of playing experience. you know, for the most part, you've got Hillary, who sat last year out. T played last year, so she's got a lot of time. You've got out there right now, you've got Kathy Hay, who's a freshman. You've got Courtney Nicely, who's a freshman. And you've got Laura Douglas, who for the most part, you know, her whole career has been volleyball. And then she's come in and helped the basketball team out. But she really hasn't been all in basketball for a long time.
Yeah,
so
'cause she played 2 years here of basketball, then stopped.
correct.
And then she finished, kept on 4-year, great volleyball player.
Oh, super volleyball player.
Player of the year in the GLVC her senior year.
Right.
And then last year, the latter part of the season, Carl Semesco asked her if she could help out because the team needed bodies, only
Correct.
had 8 girls.
Right.
So you're right, in a basketball sense, Laura's 2 years behind.
Yes, she is. So if you look at it that way, we don't have a lot of experience out there. And I think this group is just trying to struggle and figuring out how to get things going and what it takes to really get moving here.
Well, as we look at more of this action, you can see the dominance inside, getting the rebounds, Gossett, O'Connor.
Yeah, we just not put it.
And compounding that, when we did get the basketball, we just couldn't hit the shot.
No, and this is a team that we rely on our outside shooting very heavily. And you know, we go down to Ball State, and you know that's a very good basketball club, but we go 4 for 27 from threes. You know, we can't stay in the ball game. And this one we go against Eastern Illinois. You know, we go 2 for 18.
Yeah, 1 of 11 in the first half, and first half killed us when I'm looking at the numbers. We were 9 of 32 from the floor for 28% in the first half, 1 of 11 from three-point range. Eastern Illinois, 17 of 34, a lot of them in the paint.
Right.
50%. They only hit 2 of 8 from the three-point range, but they didn't have to because they had the bookends inside. They were up 10 at the half, and look at it again, inside, nice feed.
Yeah, we just didn't get any rotation backside there. We told them that we were going to we weren't going to front the post, but we were going to half deny a little bit, make them throw the lob, and as soon as the lob was coming, we were going to get backside help, and then have top side rotate down. And you know, right there, we didn't get top side to rotate down, and backside was wide open.
When you have a situation, and this was the second Saturday in a row, you played a team that had multiple players over 6 foot. We have 1. Where do you decide, or how do you and Bruce and the rest of the staff decide whether or not Kathy and the others are going to front the big gals or play back in a zone of some type?
Well, early on in the season, and the thing we've always done in the past is we've always fronted the post. And that was mainly because we had the size across town to match up with the size we were competing against. This year we don't have that. So we've gone to about a half deny, and then getting some backside help when it comes in, or getting some help from maybe a top guard and making them force it back out. So we have changed our defense a little bit just to accommodate the lack of size that we have inside.
Well, at this point, as you see, the scoreboard says 8-2. We ended up trailing 38-28 at the break, and we're just about done with our footage for the week. And final score was 78-60. We fell on the short end, and as you say, the O'Connor girl had 26 points for them, and Hillary Kulik had 18 points for us. So at this point, the team was 2-6.
Right.
And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk with a member of the team who can't play anymore, in Lindsay Wernst, and we'll do that when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
This is me, and my mom and dad, and my big brother Alex, and Jack. This is the day I learned that sandals got their name from sand, and that the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget I was sick. This was my wish.
Hi, I'm Amanda Tapping. On Stargate SG-1, my character discovered that the Stargate could be used as a key to unlock an endless variety of adventures. Your key for endless adventure is a good education. Don't limit your options. Stay in school.
For over 3 decades, Dr. James Owen has been credited for helping IPFW become a top-rated school through not only teaching, but also his involvement in the Fort Wayne community.
The kind of people that the city were hiring at the time were people with advanced computer skills. I thought, my Lord, unless my students get up to speed in this particular area, skill and talent, knowledge, that they weren't going to be competitive in the job market.
Dr. Owen developed courses that would train his students to become leaders in the community.
At one time, of the 6 major department heads in the city of Fort Wayne, 3 of them were former students of mine that I'd recommended for the job.
He makes a point to stay in touch with former students, and that makes a difference in their lives.
Whenever I think about undergraduate days, I always think about old Professor so-and-so. She said, I have one like that too. And she said that's Dr. Owen.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Time now for our student athlete interview of the week. And this week's guest, a member of the women's basketball team, but not a member of the women's basketball team. We'll explain that in a moment, but we welcome to Mastodon Spotlight, Lindsay Wernst. I'll let you do the explaining. You were a member of the women's basketball team. Mm-hmm. You started 3 of the first 4 games you played in this year. But you're not a member of the women's basketball team in terms of active participation.
Right.
Unfortunately, the injury bug has come and bitten you again.
Mm-hmm. 3 weeks ago from today, actually, I believe it was 2 weeks ago from today, at the Ball State game, stepped in and took a charge and got hit a little harder than I wanted to. And that was concussion number 6, so that pretty much ended my career right there.
6 concussions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back a little bit, Lindsay, for the benefit of some of our viewers who don't know anything about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Out of high school, I played at Arkansas State University, and I was there for a year and a half and transferred to University of Illinois at Chicago, where I sustained one of the concussions and they wouldn't let me play there anymore, and I sat out for 2 years then, and then I was fortunate enough last year to have the opportunity to come and play for Coach Semesco last year.
6 concussions, all during the time from college playing on or from high school on?
Sophomore year of high school on. They've just, every couple of years it seems like.
Where's home originally?
Freeport, Illinois, about 5 hours away.
How'd you go from Illinois to Arkansas before you came back to Illinois?
I don't know, at the time it was a really good program and it was a good opportunity, a good fit for me. And distance really didn't matter. And then I got down there and got a little homesick and needed to come home. So.
And that led to Illinois, Chicago.
Yeah.
And then how did you get in touch or find out about IPFW?
Actually, I was just on the internet looking at Division II schools. I was told that I could play if I went down a level. And I came across IPFW and saw that they were trying to rebuild a program, and that's always something that I've tried to be involved with, is programs that rebuild. So.
You came in last year, and I call it the unholy 8 or 8.5 because there weren't, what started out I believe as 10 or 11 dwindled down to 8, and then after the first year Laura Douglas came on board, so you had 9 bodies to play with. But I don't know if I should say surprisingly, to you and your teammates' credit and Coach Semesco's credit, 12-8 in the GLVC, 19-8 overall last year, with what I call a skeleton crew. Talk about last year briefly and what last year was like, and then we'll talk about the switch over to Division I and what this year started out to be.
Last year's team, I think, was just really competitive. Every day we came to practice knowing that we all had the same goal in mind, and that was to win ball games. And I think that we were very well prepared last year. We weren't the best defensive team, so we had to come in and focus every single day on what the other teams were doing and how we were going to stop them. For those who know last year's team, if you've got a Jamie Holderman and Trish Fleming, you're going to win games. They're going to find a way to get the ball in the basket. We had some age last year, which I think that helped us, where this year we're very, very young, and I think that the inconsistency has played a little bit into our record this year with that.
Talk about briefly the switch from Division II to Division I. Arkansas State, I believe, is a Division I school.
Right.
So you had a little bit of a taste, perhaps, of D1. What was it like for your other teammates, with the probable exception of Hillary Kulik, haven't had D1 experience? What's the difference been between last year's team and this year's?
It's a huge transition for anybody. Having all the new freshmen come in, I don't think they really knew what to expect, whether it was going to be Division II or Division I. I think they're starting to finally grasp the concepts and understand that teams are going to be physical and quick, and you have to rise up to that challenge every day. As for the returners, I think that they're seeing the same types of things, but with the returners, I think there's been a lot of dedication with them starting in the summer on, and that's really helped, especially now pulling the younger kids up with them.
You also had a change in coaching staffs. What was that like?
Anytime you have a change in a coaching staff, it's difficult at first. I think that the players, along with the coaches, though, are all starting to mesh really well together. Coach Patterson does a really good job with his ideas, and they really prepare us really well as far as what we need to accomplish in the game. It's just whether we do it or not.
Unfortunately, you can't play anymore because of the medical situation, at least right now on a collegiate level and at the university level. I know there was a decision reached. What's your future hold for you? If you can't play, are you still going to be involved with this year's team in some capacity?
Yeah, Coach Patterson's been kind enough to allow me to, I'm going to break down some film with Coach Paul and try and see what the other teams are doing and help to prepare my teammates with that. And then from there, hopefully I'll find a coaching job. I plan on being at the college level. It's always been something that I've focused on doing after I was done with college. So I just need to start making some contacts, and hopefully at the end of the spring, I'll be somewhere.
What a lot of people don't know is you're a graduate student. What did you get your bachelor's in?
It was in general studies.
Okay. And now, being in grad school, what's the next step that you're taking?
I'm in secondary ed right now for grad school. I thought it was very important, especially if I want to be a college coach, to go ahead and get the graduate school and all that taken care of. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to stay this year and get a few more hours towards my master's program.
Well, we wish you well. It's unfortunate that you can't play anymore, but you did play last year, and you did average 10 points a game for the 4 games you played in this year. Congratulations on the career you did have, and we wish you the best, both health-wise and in the future. If you can't get into coaching, that'd be great. But thanks again for coming on the program today.
Thank you.
Lindsay Werns has been our guest, a member of the women's basketball team here at IPFW. We'll take a break and then bring Coach Paul back as we look ahead to what's coming up with the women's basketball team. But that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment. Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We are rejoined by the assistant women's basketball coach, Chris Paul. And Chris, first question I'm going to ask, we just had Lindsay on. She only played 4 games for you and Bruce, but she can't play anymore. Thoughts on Lindsay?
Well, the first thing is we feel terrible about it. This is a kid that's obviously been through a lot. I mean, when we came over this summer and we knew that there was a kid who was trying to get some eligibility back who had taken 5 concussions, Bruce and I, first thing we talked about was 5 concussions. I've been with Bruce for 7 years, and I know he was over at St. Francis for 11. We never had a player even have a single concussion, let alone one player have 5. So we knew it was a serious condition. We knew that she was cleared and she was going to give it a shot, and that's just a tribute to her competitiveness. She came back, gave us everything she had, and the 6th concussion came as the way she plays. She stepped in front of a bigger player, took a charge, the head went to the floor. So, right now, that is where it stands, that she can't play. I know that she really wants us, and she's begging to let her back out on the floor. She's talking to other doctors and seeing where it goes, but right now she's not cleared, and we're just going to take the safety approach here.
Better safe than sorry.
Yes, yes.
At this point, 2-6.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in some ball games. You played some very good opponents. How would you rate the team's performance on a grading scale?
I would give us, right now, I would probably give us a B. The reason I wouldn't give an A is simply because I think there's a lack of effort. Sometimes, I shouldn't say effort. Effort's not the right word. Consistency, lack of consistency. But for the most part, the effort and the desire to compete at this level against some very good competition in an area where a lot of our players have never been before. We've got freshmen who've never played Division I. We've got returning players, but they've never played this caliber. You play a couple games a year, like a Northern Kentucky, who's a very good team, or Southern Indiana, something like that. A couple games a year, but you don't do it on a consistent basis, game in and game out. So, yes, we're 2-6, but we very easily could be. Bruce and I were talking about this the other day. We could very easily be 4-4 right now. So, all in all, I think we're pretty happy with what we've got so far.
Not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot before we look ahead to this coming game. You came from St. Francis.
Yes.
A national power. 7 years in a row in the National NAIA tournament.
Right.
The last 4, I believe, to make at least the quarters. A finalist 1 year. How would IPFW and St. Francis stack up against each other?
This year?
Yep.
I think it'd be a very competitive game. You've got two different styles. You've got a style across town who wants to get up and down the floor and press and get after you, basically because we did that. We know that those kids want to do that. We've got a style over here where that's what we want to do, but we don't have the bodies to do it. So I think it would be a matter of, if St. Francis couldn't handle our inside play, we would win. If we couldn't handle their pressure and turn the ball over, they may beat us. So, I think it's a give and take. They're very, very evenly matched, just different styles.
Up next for the women's basketball team this coming Saturday, a trip up to Michigan. We're going to play Eastern Michigan University from the Mid-American Conference.
Yes.
And as we talked about before we started taping, they are 6-1. On Monday night, they went down to Columbus, Ohio, and knocked off the Ohio State Buckeyes 70-58. Obviously a very good basketball team. The fact that this week is finals week and the gals have to get the educational requirements out of the way, is finals actually a deterrent or a help for this momentary break as far as being on the floor?
Right now, I think it might be a help because, we didn't play real well against Eastern Illinois on Saturday. So this way they get Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday just to relax and focus on nothing but school. We'll get back in the gym on Wednesday night and then start focusing on an Eastern Michigan team who, yes, is 6-1. They did go down and beat Ohio State at Ohio State. But what we try to do is we try to compare who we're playing with who we've played and who they've played. And we went up and beat Chicago State at Chicago State this year. Eastern went to Chicago State and did win, but they won by 6. So, we feel like it's a game that if we put together a game plan, focus on what we need to do, and come out and compete and play hard, it's a ball game we can win. It's a ball game we can win.
Well, we wish you luck on that, and we hope to talk to either you or Bruce next week about that game and then what's up ahead. We have one more game yet in December, I believe, before you start going on a trip.
Yes. Yes.
That's Western Michigan, but we'll talk about that next week.
Okay.
So, again, thanks for coming on. And,
thank you.
And we will see you more than once because we got a special show coming up that we'll tell the viewers about a little bit later. But thanks for coming in today.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Chris Paul, assistant coach for the women's basketball team, has been our guest. We thank him, along with Lindsay Wernst, for coming on today. And we thank Doug Knoll for appearing earlier in the show, talking about the men's basketball team. That's it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. As always, we thank you, the viewer, as well, for tuning in to seeing what's going on with IPFW Athletics. We invite you to come back next week when we're going to talk more round ball, both men's and women's. But until then, this is Mike Maas saying have a great week and go Dons. It's the week before Christmas, and all through campus there's hardly a sound except for the sound of a basketball being dribbled in the Hilliard Gate Sports Center. On this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, we'll take a look back at both the men's and women's basketball teams as they had important games played over the weekend. We'll come to you from Fenton, Michigan, and from IPFW on Mastodon Spotlight, which is coming up next. Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. This week, for the first half of the show, we're coming to you from the locker room here at Fenton High School near Flint, Michigan, where the IPFW women's basketball team has just taken on Eastern Michigan University from the Mid-American Conference. And unfortunately for IPFW, they dropped a 76-60 decision. I'm joined by head women's coach Bruce Patterson. And Coach, I don't know, where do you want to start talking about this ball game?
Well, as I said, it's a good thing you went in the locker room a few minutes ago. You probably heard a lot more than you should have. We were really upset with the kids at halftime because they just lagged in. And we've got a problem with sometimes with these kids come in and they're not ready to compete. They're not ready to work hard enough at it, and it shows.
This was unique. This game rather was unique in a number of ways. Number one, originally it was supposed to be at our place. There was a scheduling snafu. Then we couldn't play it on Eastern's home court, and here we are about 45 minutes away from Eastern's campus on a high school floor, which is 10 feet shorter. In trying to prepare for this game, did you have to do anything different, the fact that you're playing on a smaller floor?
Well, we did go over to Stacy did work out on a high school floor, but it wouldn't have mattered where we played. I mean, we could have played this outside, or we could have played it in a foreign country. And if you play with no heart, it doesn't make any difference where you play. I mean, you should be able to go out and compete in any of the circumstances, and we didn't. And I thought in the second half, after we did a little yelling and screaming at halftime, I thought we started to compete a little harder. But it's just a shame that we have to do that to get them to work it.
First half, as you say, a slow start, similar to the North Texas game, almost, in some ways. Afraid to move around, afraid to set the pick, afraid to take the shot. I don't know. I know you're pulling your hair out right now, and the game's just been over for a few minutes. But you had the chance. It was tied early twice, and then you made a little bit of a run, and with just under 5 minutes to go, you cut their lead to 6. And they called a timeout. It was 28-22. Things were looking good for us, but in the last 5 minutes of the first half, they outscored us 12-2.
Yeah. We observed the same thing as we were on the way into the locker room, and I can't really explain it. I will tell you that, they're a difficult team to play now. I think in a couple of years from now, when we have more experienced players, they won't be so difficult to play. I mean, when you play 40 minutes of 2-3 zone, I've made a statement a number of times before this game. I think it's bad for women's basketball, quite frankly. It slows the game down. On the other hand, it's very effective. I mean, they do a great job in their zone. They get out on the shooters. They knew where Hillary was all the time. We didn't do a very good job of screening for Hill, and I also don't believe Hill was doing a very good job, quite frankly, of getting herself to spots where she could shoot it. And when she had the opportunity to shoot it, she was a little hesitant to pull the trigger. And that comes from that lack of desire to compete. We just didn't want to compete. I don't care if you're playing tiddlywinks, or you're playing basketball, or you're playing whatever you're playing. Your athletes have to be willing to go out there and say, look, it's you and me, and I'm going to give you everything.
Well, this may sound horrible to ask, but when we look at some of these numbers, team numbers, Eastern shoots 55% from the floor. They hit 8 of their first 11 shots in the ball game.
Well,
we couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, Mike. They got 8 of 11, what it is, because we couldn't play defense, and they were dribble penetrating right by us anytime they did. That was, I don't ever try to take anything away from other teams do, but you got to be able to get your tail down and be able to stop people from dribbling past you. And we weren't doing that. And then even when we did do it, or when they get by, nobody was stepping over to take it. We didn't get anybody to step over to take a charge until 5 minutes left to go in the game, and that's really my opinion.
I was going to ask you if there was anybody that did to some degree stand out, but I think realistically there wasn't anybody.
Well, I thought Amy Gerald's in the second half got a little fire in her belly. I mean, I yelled and screamed pretty good at halftime. I'm not typically a yelling screamer, but I mean, I got down after him pretty good, and I thought Amy Gerald's responded. She came out and said, okay, I'm going to play harder. She, not just points, she went after the ball, rebounding wise, which we didn't have anybody that was exploding to the basketball. I thought that Ashley Powell did a pretty nice job, at least working. Unfortunately, she just doesn't have the foot speed that she needs sometimes to get in the press and do what we want to do, but at least she got down and tried. And that's all I beg of the kids to do is try. Let's not just pack it in and say, okay, they're supposed to beat us and we're on the road, so we're not going to try it. We just got to look at it. And we didn't move very much.
Yeah.
And apparently the coaches didn't do a very good job preparing for that.
Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Well,
you do a heck of a job.
Yeah, but you know, and I'm not, really I'm not, but I promised the kids at the beginning that not everything that happens on the court that's negative is not their fault. Sometimes it is that we don't get them up and get them ready to go. I told the kids also after the game, if they're waiting for me to emotionally lift them, then they're in the wrong game, because I don't believe coaches can emotionally lift them. What you do is you go out and get kids that want to compete from the very first tip. You know, we've maybe done that 2 or 3 games. We did that in the Army game, we did it in the Texas game, the first few minutes. You know, we did it in the Wright State game. We did it up Chicago State. For the most part, this team can go out real flat. It's a little strange.
Well, once again, the final score was Eastern Michigan 76, IPFW 60. We're going to take a break, come back, talk to a couple of the players, and then after that conversation, we're going to come back here and talk about what's ahead, because there's a couple of ball games yet this week. That's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Dr. Hermine Van Nuys is a professor who teaches her English literature classes with passion to inspire her students.
I'm very passionate about what I teach. I love the literature I teach. And I'm very proud of the faculty in my department.
Her 30 years of dedication to IPFW has earned her much respect on the collegiate level.
We offer really a wonderful English major, I think, with a number of opportunities. There really is much more, I think, probably a personal relationship established in our classes because they tend to be smaller.
Because of her experience, Dr. Van Nuys recognizes IPFW's advantages over other universities.
Students here can come to our offices. They will be seen by us. We speak to them, which is the ideal way, I think, to teach.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Was in another lifetime, one of toil and blood. When blackness was a virtue, the road was.
If we do not take responsibility for saving animals from extinction, we allow a part of ourselves to die with them. Help World Wildlife Fund protect animals in the places where they live by ordering a free action kit. Together, we can leave our children a living planet.
Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm.
Today's teenagers, the way people talk, you'd think they can't do anything right. It's just not so. We get to know over 300,000 kids a year, smart kids who know what they want. They believe in themselves, and they believe in America. Some go straight to college. Others choose to learn leadership, discipline, courage, and commitment first with us. Today's military, making a stronger America, one good kid at a time.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Time now for our student-athlete session of the program. And I'm happy to be joined, although they're not happy, we're happy to have with us on my left, your right, sophomore Amy Geralds from Beech Grove High School near Indianapolis. And on my right, your left as you're watching this, junior Hillary Kulik from Ohio, who was a transfer from Xavier University. Ladies, especially after a tough loss here against Eastern Michigan, I appreciate you giving us a few minutes of time. Amy, I'll start with you. First and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, please.
Sophomore basketball-wise, junior school-wise, I was redshirted my freshman year. I had an aneurysm bone cyst on my femur, and I'm majoring in elementary education.
Hillary?
Actually, I just graduated this semester, so I'll start grad classes in the spring. But I'm a junior playing-wise, and I transferred from Xavier, so I sat out last year, just playing pickup. But this is my first year playing here, and I have a year left.
Last year you came up here, and I think perhaps for a while you thought you were going to get to play right away, because at the time you enrolled, we were a D2 school.
Right, that's how I was told.
When everything changed and we became a D1, and you found out that you weren't going to be able to play, what were your initial thoughts?
I was pretty upset. I really was expecting to play. I was told I was going to be grandfathered in regardless of what division we went. So I just, under the assumption that I was playing full time. But I was upset, but it ended up actually working out pretty good, because now I can hopefully get done with grad school and have 2 years left to play here, and we're playing at a higher level. So hopefully start a winning program here. That's our goal.
I know it's kind of tough. This ball game here tonight, we had Coach Patterson on a few minutes ago. It's a tough one. We talked about the fact that initially this game was supposed to be played at our place, and through a scheduling conflict we had to go to Eastern, and then at the last moment we found out we weren't going to play on a college court, we were going to play on a high school court about 45 miles away from Eastern's campus. Did the difference playing on a smaller court tonight bother either or both of you or the whole team? Or?
I think it really affects how one of our main goals is to be a running team, and when you cut the corner by 10 feet, it eliminates that. Plus, when they're playing zone, it brings their zone. You take off 5 feet from each side of the floor, so your point guards are already pushed back so far that, I mean, it really shortens the court up, and you don't have as much room to work with. But we weren't able to do what we wanted to do. Partly. I mean, I'm not making excuses. We didn't play as like we should have, but it did make a difference. You could tell, just because your point guard is right on top of your post players inside.
Amy, your thoughts on the shorter floor as well?
Because our main thing is getting the ball looking down the court, and the shorter, it felt so short, like we couldn't even run because they were already down there. And that's one of the things that we look for.
This team, for whatever reason, it almost has a Jekyll and Hyde personality. You have played well in some games, and some games you haven't. Any thoughts, any reason why? You just can't seem to put 40 minutes together right now?
I think part of it's that we're so young, plus a new coaching staff, plus just moving D1. It's a totally different ballgame. Just the athletes, you got quicker, stronger athletes out there, and right now we're playing with kids that were recruited to play Division II, and I mean we got to work hard every game, but still, the level of competition is that much harder. Right now we're just inconsistent. We got to find some consistency in what we're doing.
Your leading scorer on this ball club, averaging over 15 points coming into this game tonight, and unfortunately you were held to 9. Other teams are finding out that you're a very good outside shooter. Does that make it more difficult for you, knowing that the other teams are going to be out to get you, maybe shadow you or trick up a team or two there?
Going into the game, I don't ever think about it really. It's just another ball game. But I mean, you can obviously tell when they know who you are, when they yell shooter every time you touch the ball. I mean, Amy knows that. She got it today too. So it does make a difference. It makes it harder to get open, but I mean, I got to work on. I can't just be an outside shooter anymore. I have to find other ways to score. So.
Amy, we commented before we started taping this segment that one of the things I noticed from last year to this year is that you have worked harder, especially on your inside game, especially with the left-handed shot, and you're telling me you're a natural right-hander. Why does it seem to be so much more easier? Is it just more dedication, more work to try to go to the left, or the element of surprise? Or?
I don't know, I just feel like I concentrate more with my right hand because I'm so used to like shooting with my right hand, and I much more comfortable shooting left-handed layup than I do a right-handed layup.
I know it's warm in here, and we're going to get on the bus and head home soon, so I'll cut this relatively short. At this juncture, this team is 2-7, I believe. And we got some tough games ahead. You got a trip to Chicago. Then you got a game next Sunday against Western Michigan at home. And then you go to Kentucky and you go to the Bahamas before the second semester starts. Thoughts on this upcoming next couple of weeks, and then thoughts on the rest of the season after that? Hillary, start with you.
I'd say we have to take a game at a time. Right now we're struggling just with doing that, I think. So now that school's out, focus should be basketball, and we got to make sure we get in the gym every day and work our tails off, because it's not going to get easier from here on out. And I think we know that, but we got to make sure each day in practice is, it's as hard as it's going to be game-wise. So that means everybody's got to work hard and we got to be consistent. So.
Amy?
I just think, like Hill said, we got to take one game at a time, work harder in practice, challenge each other in practice. I know that's the problem we have right now, but just taking one game at a time and working hard.
Well, ladies, again, under circumstances coming off a tough loss, we really appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time. Good luck the rest of the way, and hopefully things are going to get better sooner than later. But thanks again for coming on the show this week.
Thank you.
Hillary Kulik and Amy Geralds have been our student-athlete guests of the week. We'll take a break and bring back Coach Patterson, because we are going to talk about what's ahead for the women's basketball team. But that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
I'm Richard Dean Anderson. On Stargate SG-1, we discovered that the Stargate device could be used to explore an endless variety of adventures. Your device for endless adventure is a good education. No matter what your goals might be, you'll go a lot farther if you don't drop out. So keep your options open. Stay in school.
The good earth. It gives us everything. And now you can give something back. By becoming an Earth Team volunteer, you can help the Natural Resources Conservation Service care for the good earth, right in your own community. It's the only earth we'll ever have. Help make it a better place for all of us. Call 1-888-LAND-CARE to find out how. Dr. Matthew Kubik is an architectural engineering professor at IPFW who utilizes his experience to teach his students one-on-one.
So it's really shoulder-to-shoulder learning, that we're looking at problems together for the first time.
Dr. Kubik also is the director of the honors program at IPFW. His ability to teach on a personal level allows him to educate to the needs of his honors students.
They want more conversation. They want a closer contact with professors. They want interactive learning in the classroom.
He is thankful for the advantages of a combined classroom of young students and students who are returning to college after years in the workplace.
That mix of students creates a classroom environment that is exciting, that's vibrant.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We come to you once again from the locker room at Fenton High School in Fenton, Michigan, just outside Flint. We're visiting once again with the head women's basketball coach here at the University, Bruce Patterson. Bruce, now with this ball game over, the record drops to 2-7. There's no rest. We've got a bus ride back home tonight. You get tomorrow some type of a practice, and you're back on the bus Monday for a game that will have been played when this show airs against Illinois Chicago. Thought about that game?
Did I think about it?
No.
Well, we thought about the schedule. Did we pay any attention to, have we prepared for it? The answer is no. I mean, we'll be up tomorrow morning early trying to prepare, making sure the scouting report is there, making sure we're trying to be ready for the practice that's going to come up tomorrow afternoon to get the players ready. But honestly, as I mentioned earlier, Mike, right now, I'm more worried about the psyche of this team. I don't know whether it's finals, I don't know whether it's the travel, I don't know what it is, but we're just not blood and guts basketball team. This is not a classic. They're not functioning as a classic Wisconsin team or this coaching staff. We like to think of ourselves as we're going to get in your face and we're going to find it. Somewhere between now and the end of the season, we'll go find it.
On, as I say, on Monday night, you play Illinois Chicago. Then we have a game on Sunday, the 23rd, against Western Michigan, and hopefully you're going to have an addition to the ball club, I believe. Possibly?
We hope so, yeah. And I'll tell you, she'll make a difference because she is a blood and guts player, and she's a kid who wants the basketball and have a chance to shoot it. But we're still waiting patiently for the grades to come in. I can only tell you that she's worked very hard, one in practice and two in the classroom to get her eligibility back. For her sake, I pray it comes back. And, you know, obviously, for our sake, I pray it comes back, but for her sake, I really pray it comes back too. She's a great kid and she tries hard.
And who we're talking about is Amy Meyer, who played for IPFW briefly 2 years ago, and is coming back, and hopefully, as Coach says, she'll be a very good addition to this club. Chris and I talked briefly last week about the fact that there was a break while the girls were taking finals. And now we're coming up, we got the 2 games this week, and then it seems like it's Christmas, and then you get ready to go on a trip. Is there ever a good time to have a momentary break in the schedule?
Oh, I think this team probably needs some breaks. This schedule is not kind to them. I mean, playing 8 home games and 17, I believe it is, or whatever it is, I kind of lose track of the numbers. That many games on the road is hard on anybody, let alone a team that emotionally has trouble lifting itself. I mean, we're real dependent on freshmen, and I think kids are still trying to figure out who each other is. And for that, I feel for them, but it's during the season. It's not my job to feel for them. It's my job to try to get them to work harder. So yeah, I wish we had a break, but we don't.
Well, we're going to let you get out of here so we can all head home. But because we won't be on again until after the holidays. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to you, your team, your staff, and your family. Have a safe couple of trips, because while we're going to be gone over Christmas, you're going to be gone to the Bahamas, I believe, as well.
Yeah, we leave. Actually, we got 2 tournaments. We've got the Eastern Kentucky tournament. That's, I think it's right before January 1st, and we come back on, I believe, on the 31st or the 30th. We're here for a day or 2, and then we got to take off on the 1st to drive up to Chicago and board airplane to be in the Bahamas by the 2nd. So this could. Let's go test them.
Well, again, happy holidays to everyone, and have a safe trip, and hopefully a good time and a few wins. And we'll talk again after the first of the year.
Thank you very much.
Bruce Patterson has been our guest, head women's basketball coach here at IPFW. We'll take a break, and when we come back, it's men's basketball with Doug Knoll. That's when the Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the 225-year history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
I'm David Copperfield, and throughout my career I've done lots of magic. And I made a few things disappear. But there's one thing I can't make disappear. teenage skin problems. If I could do that, I'd be able to restore a teenager's self-esteem. But then I wouldn't be a magician. I'd be a dermatologist.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We shift our attention now from the women's basketball team to the men's basketball team. And we have with us the head coach of the IPFW men's basketball team, Doug Knoll. And Doug, last week when we talked, we got off the schneid and we finally got a victory against Indiana Tech, 111-100. And a little bit of a sigh of relief came from you. We continued our great homestand Monday night. We took on the Tri-State Thunder, a team that you're well familiar with from your days at Spring Arbor. Final score 65-62, a game that never should have been this close. A brief overview of this game, and then we'll actually dissect it a little bit.
Well, I think it was a game that Tri-State came in, really ready to play and compete for 40 minutes. And I think a problem that we've had is we try to play to, our competition and not our abilities. I mean, when we play the Michigan States, the Michigans, the Ball States, you can get geared up for that and get mentally and physically ready. And then when you play, maybe somebody like Indiana Tech or Tri-State, and not to disrespect them, but, our guys look at them like, okay, well, they're an NAIA Division II team, going to be pretty easy. And, it shouldn't matter what name is on the jersey. I mean, it should matter that you come out ready to play for 40 minutes and compete. And, we've had distractions the last week or so, but, we've got to get through those types of things, Mike, and of losing a player or two and not being at full strength. But, you can sit there and make excuses all day long. The bottom line is you have to come ready to play no matter who it is, because, the shoe's on the other foot now, and these teams are trying to knock you off. And Tri-State played very well. We played very poorly. Concentration level, lack of effort, whatever. And we've done this the last couple days. I know it's been finals week last week, but hey, it's been finals week at Tri-State. So what's the difference?
Finals week for just about every school in the country. Before we start talking about the game, I'd like to go back to a point that you just mentioned. Distractions, personnel shifts and changes. Briefly comment on a couple of them. We've lost a couple of players. We're getting a couple of players back. You alluded to getting Jim Kesnick and Zach Reuter back from their foot fractures, but they're not totally ready to go. And we've lost a couple of players. Talk about how it disrupts the team.
Well, in a year that, we almost have to be perfect to survive, we've taken hits almost every week on something, and that's been really I think the frustrating part of this season. It's tough enough when you schedule 24 Division I teams when really you're probably not ready, but it's even worse when you have distractions on the road, in hotels, when kids are late and you have to discipline, you have to start different lineups because of one thing or another. When your two big kids or two of your big kids fracture their foot the first week of practice, and then you're without, some bodies. It really takes a toll on a team. And then last week, John Watkins left the team for some personal reasons, and then we sat Rick Wyan down last night because of academics. And he may be back, he may not be back. The bottom line, he still can play, but I just felt like, if he's not going to get things done in the classroom that we expect and the standards that we set for these kids, then he doesn't deserve to play. And, it hurts me to do these types of things for the rest of the team, because Rick was our third leading scorer and our leading rebounder, and he's playing very well. He had 28 points against Ball State, 6, 7 rebounds. He had 10 rebounds against Florida International. He was just starting to, really come on and find his niche. But, these kids go to school for 4 years to work 40 years, to make something of themselves. And if they don't take this serious, and if they don't prioritize, the importance of academics and, what this school stands for and the Big Ten degree, then, they don't deserve to play, and part of it is, you know, probably kids being irresponsible, you know, just immature type things that Rick's done, and I feel bad for him, but he had choices. He had choices that, you know, he could go to class, he could, you know, he could get extra help from the profs, because the profs here at IPFW have just been super. I mean, they're not going to give you anything, but they will definitely help you in any way they can, because we're on the road a lot, and if you're not going to go get that help, they're not going to run after you, and I just respect everything that they've done here for our team and the other athletic teams to help us out, you know, during those times when we're gone. And that's what we stress. You're going to be gone enough when you're here you don't miss class. And, you know, sometimes you learn the hard way. And, you know, hopefully Rick will be back, but I'm not sure.
Well, we will talk about that in the weeks to come as we, again, this evolution, student-athlete. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in more detail later on. Let's get back to this game Monday night. A game, on paper, as you said, we should walk all over the Thunder. We didn't. They got out to the good lead. They got out to a 12-6 lead early on. They hit a couple of threes. First few thoughts when they get the lead at our place, you know, a game that we're supposed to win. What were your thoughts initially?
Well, I think, you know, you don't just look back at, you know, a 12-6 lead, because in basketball you have about 100 possessions, and that's only 2 possessions. So, you know, getting a 12-6 lead really didn't alarm me, I guess, from a standpoint of, you know, them jumping out. What really bothered me was the way we approached the game last night from the start, from you know, pregame drills and warm-ups that we do, even an hour before the game with the coaches, to our warm-up, to our focus of being ready to play this game. You know, to me, Mike, this is the greatest time of year. I mean, this is a time when we can really give thanks for what we have. I mean, we are so fortunate to, you know, be able to live in a country like we live in. And yeah, you know, the world changed on September 11th, but, you know, there's people right now, you know, fighting wars, you know, to allow us to do our daily life, you know, go about our daily lives. And these kids, they have it made. This is a false pretense of what life's all about. I mean, play college basketball, go to school a little bit. They're under no pressure. And, you know, I'm just really disappointed at the attitude that we take right now, you know, moping around, feeling sorry for ourselves and different things, and I have no idea why, and I can't figure it out. And, you know, we're trying, but that's kind of how we practiced the last couple days. And so, you know, coming out even the first set that we ran, I mean, it was very sluggish and it was very mundane, and our passes weren't crisp, and I knew right out of the blocks it was going to be a struggle all night. And from a mental standpoint for coaches, when you get done with a game like this, you're just totally exhausted and totally drained, because every play you're just trying to plead and beg and coax the guys, you know, to try to snap out of it. And when you don't do that, I'll tell you what, we're very fortunate we won the game. Very fortunate.
We're going to look at some highlights, and that's actually the last couple of minutes of the game. And we're down at this point. We were down. We were up by 1 at halftime. We fall behind the second half. We started this sequence. D'Angelo Woodall, who I thought played very well, finally hit some free throws. At one point, we had missed 5 free throws in a row in the second half. 3 of those were front ends of 1-and-1s. But he, in a sequence of about 30-35 seconds, he hit a pair of free throws on 2 occasions to tie it up. And at this point, there's a jumper by Tri-State. They're back up at just 59-57.
Well, we really did a good job, really, in that possession. I mean, we're aggressive. That was really some of the first times that we came out and were aggressive. But, you know, they moved the ball around. They spaced the floor and did a nice job. We got Nick into a little curl cut. Got him a little 4-footer. He does that so well, moves well without the ball. You know, he really has to. And you know, we're getting down to crunch time right here, and the pressure's on us. It's really not on them, and we've got to really, here we let them out of a trap and give them a wide open look, and then we stand around and we don't go get the ball. We don't block out. Again, just a mental breakdown of you know, not being smart and not taking advantage of a bad shot by Tri-State. You know, we expect the ball just to come to us, and we can't do that. And basically, we commit a silly foul and put them at the line.
And they're going to make a couple of free throws. Luke Amstut's a Carroll graduate. A lot of local players playing for Dick Heck. Luke Amstut's from Carroll, Brandon O'Leary from Bishop Dwenger, their big kid Elkins from Columbia City. So Dick's come down here and gotten some talent. And they're back here playing, in essence, their home game almost, in front of some of their fans. And Amstutz knocks these two down. They're up again at this point, 61-59. And we've got, believe it or not, 35 seconds to go in the game, and we're down.
Well, here the timeout was good. We got to run a set. We called Georgetown. And, you know, what happens is they were switching everything, and we got a nice entry pass and a little semi-dunk by Jeremy King here. We just isolated. They've been switching everything all night, but we tried to put Jeremy at the 5. We went a little quicker and a little more athletic, you know, from that standpoint. So we really tied the game up, and I tell you what, I don't really want to talk a whole lot about that call because I'm really kind of disappointed at some of the things that have transpired here since I've been here as far as officiating goes, and not to allude on it a whole lot, but I tell you what, when we're on the road, we get no calls, and you know, when we get at home, you know, in a tight situation like that, I mean, that could go either way. I'll just be blunt, that should go to the home team, because D'Angelo, you know, did not create the contact. The guy ran over him, and you can be moving and still pick up the charge. And you know, I felt like at this time of the game, obviously that call, you know, has to go to us, and you know, it didn't. It didn't.
And it was the 5th foul on D. He had 12 points in the game, but he had those 4 critical free throws, 2 with 2:20 to go, 2 with a minute 42 to go, that got us back into a position that we had a chance to pull it out. And now you got a situation here. They only make 1 out of the 2. And surprisingly, and we talked about this briefly before we started taping, they called the timeout. This is with 11.2 seconds to go.
Well, that was our timeout right there that we just took, try to ice the shooter a little bit. And it did work on the first one. You know, we were running a set play out of bounds here now because we really only needed, you know, we only needed a layup. We didn't need a 3. And so, you know, this is where they call timeout. And we were really looking for something from them, but they didn't give us much pressure. And Lee pushed the ball down. We had our guards scissor. We got the ball to Wise. He just turned, and really they didn't get any help. And, you know, we got the basket right there, which was
critical. 3.6 seconds to go. That puts us on top 63-62. There's their last chance, and they throw it away. Nick picks it up. He's fouled. And he's going to make 2 free throws to make the final 65-62, a fortuitous victory.
Yeah, it's a little ironic when you're down 1 with 4 seconds to go and you end up winning by 3. But, you know, we've had that happen to us, and, you know, that's basketball, and you know, could have went either way. Finally, we got a little break, and which maybe we didn't even deserve. But, you know, if you hang with it, you know, Nick's the type of player that you need the ball in his hands. He's going to make basketball plays at the end. And if you know, somebody doubles him, you know, he's going to kick it. I mean, but, you know, from that standpoint, Lee made a great decision because we had Brad and Nick crisscross. And when Nick caught it, he didn't hesitate. I mean, he just turned and went to the basket, and they had no help side. And he got a nice little layup. I mean, it was contested, but, you know, he was able to, you know, be strong with it. And then he knocked the 2 free throws down with 4/10 or whatever it was to kind of make it look a little, you know, a little wider margin. But we were very fortunate.
Bottom line, IPFW 65, Tri-State 62. Time for a break. When we come back, we've got 2 Western road trips coming up over the Christmas holidays, and we'll talk about those trips when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Matthew Shepard died after he was beaten and tied to a fence. 2 men have been charged. One pleaded guilty.
You know, my biggest regret after walking into the hospital and seeing him was I didn't tell him enough as a father that I loved him. The thing that I've learned most is that your son is your son and your daughter is your daughter, regardless of whether they're straight or gay.
This is me, and my mom and dad, and my big brother Alex, and Jack. This is the day I learned that Santas got their name from sand, and that the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget I was sick. This was my wish.
It is more than a trial by fire. It is a rite of passage, a challenge to join the elite. And if you succeed, if you can master your fear, outsmart your enemy, and never yield even to yourself, you will be changed forever. The few, the proud, the Marines.
With over 30 years of dedication to his students, Professor of Geosciences Deepak Chowdhury recognizes the IPFW experience.
He doesn't spoon feed you all the information that you need. He mostly will give you all of the knowledge that you need in bits and pieces. And it's almost like a puzzle where he gives you all the pieces, and in the end you'll put it together and have the larger picture yourself. I really enjoy it. He's a great professor to work with and for.
IPFW is one of only 3 universities in the state to offer students hands-on experience with their own seismograph. This gives Dr. Chowdhury great pride, but it is the interaction with his students that has kept him teaching.
When the students understand the concept, what's happening, that glimmer of light in their eyes, that you cannot trade for any money. So that's the most important thing.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. We're talking men's basketball with the head coach of IPFW's men's basketball team, Doug Nolan. Doug, we're on a 2-game winning streak. Doesn't matter who we're playing, we're on a 2-game winning streak. Now, perhaps one of the tougher parts of the schedule in the sense that you're going to make not 1 but 2 trips out west. And as this show is being aired on the Wednesday night, you will already have been on an airplane and getting ready to take on Colorado State from the I think it's Big West, or the WAC, I'm not sure, from the WAC. And you're going to be playing Colorado State on Thursday night. And then 2 days later, you're going to take on Montana State from the Big Sky Conference. Let's talk about those 2 ball games first, and then you're going to come home, spend 2 days for Christmas with family, and go back out again. But let's talk about these first 2 games this weekend, or this week rather, with Colorado State and Montana State.
Well, it's a great trip. You know, they always say who wants to go out to, you know, the Rockies during the wintertime, but at Spring Arbor, we were able to take our team out to Montana one year, and it's just beautiful country. You know, it's great basketball. The ironic thing is I played at Colorado State a long time ago, and you know, Brad's going to be able to play there now, and our team, and that'll be exciting because you know, I played at University of Wyoming for a year, and they were in our league, and so we went down there and played at Fort Collins, and it should be a great trip. I mean, you know, we leave Wednesday morning at 8:30, and by 1:30 we're in Denver, and we grab a bus to Fort Collins, which is about an hour away. When the show's airing, we're probably practicing out at Colorado State. And then we play the next night, and then the following day we bus back to Denver and fly to Bozeman, which is only about an hour flight. We were originally scheduled to play Wyoming on the second leg of this to get back out to Wyoming, because I hadn't been out there in the 25 plus years that back in 73, 74 when I played out there. So that didn't work out, that fell through, but we are going to play them the following year, next year, with a road trip to Wyoming and Nebraska, which is another ordeal in itself.
Shoot this guy who makes a schedule.
That's right. But, you know, we're really looking forward to it, and we called probably 10 different teams within about an hour flight of Colorado State, and Montana State was very willing to play us, and so both of them are guaranteed games. We'll go out there and play Thursday, Saturday, come back Sunday, and hopefully, you know, play better, play well. I mean, right now is a fun time of year because, you know, all the kids have to do is play basketball. I mean, the studies are done. They can concentrate on basketball. They get to travel a little bit, and different venues, different gyms, and I think the Montana State girls volleyball team came here earlier in the year and
showed us what they were.
But they were pretty good.
Yes, they were.
They were one of the top-ranked teams in the nation, and Kelly Hartley's team still did a real good job in that game. But just a great time to get away and see some beautiful country, and hopefully play well. Both teams are kind of like Tri-State, only a lot bigger and a lot more physical. But that's the type of teams they are. They're not up and down. They slow it down a little bit, but they are going to be physical, and we're going to have to match them on the interior and be strong, you know, each and every game we play.
Are you concerned at all about the fact, especially in the Colorado State game, a little bit of an altitude difference? You're going to be about 5,000, 6,000 feet high above sea level. Are you concerned over the fact that there's going to be rarefied air?
No, I didn't think about that until you just mentioned it. But you know, that will be a little bit of a problem, I think, early on, and hopefully we can, you know, rotate enough that, you know, we're going to be able to get some guys in and out, maybe go 3-4 minutes at a stretch. They don't get up and down the floor very fast, so I think that will help us. But that was a big to-do when I was out there a long time ago, that it took a while to get in shape. And so, you know, we'll probably be sucking air for a while.
Didn't mean to be the bearer of bad news.
Well, we got a lot more to worry about than that, you know, from our standpoint. But, you know, we just got to go out there and be ready to play and see what happened. I mean, you know, we didn't make it easy, you know, as far as the scheduling goes. But, you know, they're not invincible. I mean, you know, if we play extremely well, you know, we may have a chance to win, but we'll find out.
Well, as you say, Thursday, Saturday, I believe you come home Sunday. You get to spend Christmas Eve, Christmas Day at home with families, hopefully, or most of the team, hopefully we'll be able to do that. But then the day after Christmas, you get back on the airplane, and you're going to go out to Oregon to take on the Oregon State Beavers of the Pac-10, and that'll be on December 27th. And then 2 days later, you're going to go down to Southern California and play Long Beach State, and you're going to finish the second road trip on January 2nd, taking on San Diego State, as we talked about earlier, coached by Steve Fisher, who all he did his first 6 games as a collegiate head coach was coach the Michigan Wolverines to a national championship back in '89. Let's talk about the second trip now, going out west to take on a Pac-10 team and 2 other good ball clubs.
Yeah, we don't have much time at home, and you know, because of the scheduling, it's unfortunate. The following year, we're actually going back out to California and playing Irvine, San Diego State again, and then we go over to UNLV in Las Vegas. So again, another exciting trip, but we can leave on the 27th in a year from now, where we have to leave on the 26th this year. And so it's a little difficult because I'm making everybody come back Christmas night and have a little workout, and part of the reason for that is the safety reason. If we get them all here like at 8 o'clock at night, Christmas night, then they can get a night's sleep here in their apartments, and we can have them all here when we get ready to get up early and go on the bus out to the airport, instead of them driving in all night or late or trying to get in here a couple hours before. So that's basically, you know, from that point why we're doing that. Oregon State's going to be really good. There's no doubt about it. A Pac-10 team. It's going to be a hostile arena. The only good thing about this whole 5-game schedule is the students will be going for break. So that'll alleviate some of the crowd noise and that type of thing. Long Beach and San Diego State are very good too. And you know, we're looking forward to getting out to California. What better time to spend than New Year's Eve in San Diego with about 80 degrees. We're going to go to the San Diego Zoo, take the kids there. I mean, you know, this is basketball, but at the same time we need to, you know, really expand their horizons and really see parts of the country and experience some things outside of basketball. And I think these are things that are important for the kids, and hopefully will be, you know, long time lasting experiences for them when they sit back and look at it and say, you know, they're probably not going to remember each and every game, and maybe even hopefully they'll forget the win-loss records, you know, but they'll remember the you know, those relationships they've had, and also the places they've been, and the fun they've had, and that's what we're, you know, that's what we're trying to do right now.
We talked earlier about adjustments, and a lot of them have had to be made, and we talked about at least one player who's no longer with the team, one player who may or may not be. Let's look at the bright side. You are getting one player back, and that is Terry Collins, the Fort Wayne Snyder graduate. Talk about what that may mean to this team, and just in the last couple of minutes that we've got, thoughts on what you think is going to happen down the road.
Well, it'd be nice if Terry was like 6'7", 250, you know, but he's about 6 foot and about 200. But I think he's going to bring a lot of energy to us. I think he's very physical. You know, he's a year and a half removed out of high school now. So, you know, I saw Terry play his junior year one game when he scored his 1,000th point against Concordia, and I was there recruiting another player when I was at Spring Arbor. So I've known about Terry for a long time, and I'm proud that, you know, he's come in and been able to get some things done academically, and also you know, work hard in practice. He's not going to be ready again. You just don't stop playing for a year and a half and then all of a sudden you're going to play you know, WAC teams and Big Sky teams and Pac-10 teams, and you know, we've got to bring him along gradually, but we'll find out, you know, just exactly how ready he is pretty quick. We're going to combo him, playing him at the 1 and the 2, because he's a pretty good offensive weapon, and I think, you know, he can defend. He's got very quick feet. He can score. He's got a scorer's mentality, but he can get in the paint and create a lot, and that's what we're really looking forward to him. Again, it just gives us another player, a little more depth, and that's good for us at this point. You know, D'Angelo and Brad are playing pretty well right now at the point, but anytime we can get some more help, you know, we can go at teams a little harder and stay focused on their point guards to try to wear them down. And I think that's what Terry's going to bring, and he's going to bring in, you know, an entourage of people from Fort Wayne to our games, and hopefully he'll have a good career and end up, you know, 3+ years here at IPFW and be a pretty good player in our program.
Well, we wish him well. We wish you and your ball club well. Have 2 safe trips. Enjoy Christmas as best you can. Hopefully Santa's going to bring a few more good presents in the stocking, but until we see you again in a few weeks, good holiday season and safe trips.
Well, thanks, Mike. You know, and this year it's it's what we want to do is just play well every game and come out and make an effort for 40 minutes, and we haven't done that the last couple games, so hopefully we'll turn it around. But thanks to you, and Merry Christmas, and to everybody here at 56 also, and all the people in the viewing area. Happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Doug Noah has been our guest, head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. We thank Doug for appearing, as well as Bruce Patterson, the women's coach earlier, and Hillary Kulik and Amy Geralds, who appeared earlier on as well. That's it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. We thank you for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. We invite you to come back next week, where we have a special program lined up. We call it Roundtable 2, as we're going to be visiting with some of the assistant coaches here at IPFW. But until then, this is Mike Maas saying, have a Merry Christmas and go Dons.